Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how I do this style of wire wrapping. Now what I'm using here is about a 40 millimeter long by maybe anywhere between 10 and 15 millimeter in diameter faceted tube bead, kind of. I don't really know what it looks and is shaped like this, and this is actually a red agate. And then I'm using about 1.5 feet of 18 gauge square copper enameled wire from parawire.com. All the tools and materials that I'm using will be listed down in the video description below, so be sure to check that out. Also, I've got, well, right here I'm just using a paintbrush handle, but you could use any 6 or 7 millimeter mandrel, or a Bic pen. I have some flush cutters, some bent nose pliers, and some round nose pliers. It's optional, but it's always a good idea to have on hand some nylon jaw pliers. And let's get started. Oh, also, just 2 decorative bead caps. You can use whatever kind that you like. And you could use just any old bead, but I really like the way that these ones look, kind of hugged up on the ends. I'm going to begin by making sure that our wire fits through our bead, which it does. Hooray! If it doesn't, you could use a 20 gauge or a round wire. I really like the way that the square wire flashes and has a nice kind of texture to it, but this works just as well with round. And then I'm going to give myself about a hand's length of wire out of the top of the bead. And I'm going to slide one of the bead caps on. And using my mandrel, I'm going to wrap twice around. This is making the bail, which is where the chain or cord would go through. And then if the bail is the head and the bead is the body, we want to do a few wraps around the neck. And you could have this be however tight or loose or, very, especially with the square wire, we could have stacked those very tight and cleanly next to each other. But I really like a clean organic, or a messy organic look. And kind of just let the wire do whatever it decides to do. I'm straightening that up to try to keep it centered over the center line of the bead. I'm going to go ahead and remove my mandrel. And then coming down, I'm going to put the bead cap on the other end, just like that. And then if you do this motion with your fingers, where you put them together and kind of twist like this, what we can do is make a really nice little curly cue in our wire. And so we're going to just kind of bring that around. See how it's starting to make a nice little curl? And just bring it up and around, following like that, and then wrap until we get back up to that neck. I like to give it a little bit of space to let it frame, and you can see here our bead cap on the end is off center, so this is an excellent opportunity to just kind of smoosh and straighten that back up. I always come back as I'm working and readjust to maintain that straight line. I'm going to do 1 rotation around the neck, and then I'm going to take this, how it's protruding out to the side. I want it coming across our pendant. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and just make a nice little spiral. And you could trim the wire to make a smaller spiral if you want. Sorry, I don't mean to go off camera. But I'm just doing this rotation, like vroom vroom motion with my hand. There we are. It's just a nice little decorative spiral. And now with this long tail of wire coming off to this side, I press down on this side with my finger and press up with my thumbnail, and it gives it a nice little curve. And I find that helps the wire to start to go in the direction that I want it to, all the while holding the pendant quite firmly. And I'm actually going to just have this follow around the outer curve of that spiral, and then bracing it with my thumb, just wrapping around the back. And then from here, I'm actually going to thread between the bead and that first framing wire, like that. And so with it coming down out of the bottom, you could add a lot more spirals. You could just do really whatever you like. But I'm just going to bring this up and around. And then I'm going to get in here with my flush cutters. And making sure that I'm going to be ending up with the flat side on the wire. Because you can see here, if I cut like this side ends up tapered. I want, like, see how it has a little bit of a point? I want to make sure that I'm using the flat side so it ends up very nice and flat. So nice flat side. So I'm going to get in there and snip. And you can see, but it's a little offset right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my bent nose pliers and just tighten that down and tuck it so there's no little snaggy bits. And that is how I make this pendant. Now you can see there's some natural variation. You can change the metal tone that you use. This, same technique and design could be, use it with a variety of different shapes and sizes of beads. But I feel like it's a really great way of making beautiful yet simple pendants. Well, it can be as however simple or complicated as you make it. But what I mean by simple in this is there's no weaving, there's very little, technical, like counting or anything like that. It's a very organic freeform wrap that is still replicable. So if y'all have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I do love hearing from you guys, and I hope that this tutorial was helpful to you. All of my social media links are down below, all that good stuff in the video description. If you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, please consider joining me over on Patreon. Links for that are down below as well. But until next time, happy crafting, y'all. Bye.